Hey class, Instructor Fran here. Just wanted to step you through how to write an introduction, and specifically for this assignment we're going to be writing the introduction to essay number 1. So the first thing that you really need to do when you are writing an introduction is to know what the assignment is in total. So we're going to look through the directions briefly for essay number 1 so we have a clear overview of what we're writing about. I'll make another video that goes into more depth about essay number 1. But then we're going to open up the module on the introduction and I'll sort of step you through how I would do that. Just as a important note, I'm a really big fan of structure. How I like to put it is, if you had the best ideas, the most earth-shattering ideas in the world, if they weren't communicated in a clear structure, it'd be really difficult for your reader to understand the impact of your amazing ideas. They would sort of be lost. So I look at structure of an essay as essential because it's like a house structure. You know, it's the foundation. I kind of think of it as the outline that lets your clear ideas shine through. So realize that as you mature as a writer, it'll be fine to deviate, to not follow the strict of a structure, but for now I feel like it's important for everyone in English 101 to follow the structure that we discuss here. So let's look at let's go over to the modules and we're going to look at the instructions for essay number 1 very briefly. Okay, I actually know that there's one thing that is going to be different when you see this, but that's okay. Okay, essay number 1. So it says read through the instructions for essay number 1 before you write your introduction. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down and kind of ignore some of the top part because we want to really know the meat of what we're doing for essay number 1 before we write this introduction. So, okay. So you know this is a character analysis, and specifically your central idea. It says first you have to have for your central idea a clear argument you want to make about your character. Your central idea will convey what you think is the moral lesson the character is learning or not learning over the course of the story. Remember that an argument has to be analysis, not summary. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to, from our syllabus, you can pick any story. It doesn't matter if we've read it or not yet, but it has to be from our syllabus so that I know we have a commonality in the story that we're talking about here. So you need to pick a story and pick a character, and you need to think, what lesson should this character have learned over the course of the story? Okay, there's lots of good ones to choose from. It doesn't really matter at this point whether he or she did learn the lesson or not. You're just trying to think about character and a lesson. Okay. When it comes time to write your body paragraphs, there's a very specific focus that I want you to have for each. I'll go through that more when we talk about essay number 1, when you write the whole thing. But it is important when you write your introduction to know what your body paragraphs are going to have, as we'll get back to that later, what the content for your body paragraphs will be. So let's look what your content of your body paragraphs will be. Okay, we'll focus on A. So the first body paragraph is going to be about what the character believes about the particular moral lesson in question at the beginning of the story. Okay, in other words, your first body paragraph is going to focus on your character in relation to that lesson to be learned at the beginning of the story. Now, if he or she needs to learn a lesson, then they probably don't have that lesson mastered at the beginning of the story. Okay? So you're going to be searching for evidence that shows that he or she is not perfect in that understanding of that lesson at the beginning of the story. Okay, B, which is paragraph 2. You're going to be focusing on what the turning point is or should be in the character's understanding of the moral lesson. Okay, so body paragraph number 2 is going to be about, you're going to be proving when the opportunity was for your character to learn the lesson. Not if he or she learned the lesson yet, but when. You need to be proving that there was an opportunity to learn that lesson and what that opportunity was. Okay, and then body paragraph number 3, why the character does or does not learn the moral lesson at the story center. So you're going to basically be proving in that third body paragraph if he or she learned that lesson and why or why not he or she did or did not. Okay, so now that I have that clear in my mind, I'm going to go to the module on introductions. Okay, so I know I'm going to pick a story, pick a character, think of a lesson he or she should have learned, and I need to go from there. Okay, so opening up the module on introductions, let's take a look at this. Okay, your introduction should be a minimum of 150 words and include the following 6 things. Okay, so again, this is a nice recipe for you to follow. Number 1, you're going to have a hook. That's something to grab the attention of your reader. It's a device to grab the attention of your reader in the first sentence of your introduction. Okay? It could be a quote, a question, a shocking idea, a statistic that's relevant, an anecdote. There's a lot of different ones. I should create a module on that, but basically you want it to be completely relevant and integrated into what your paper is. Okay. From there, you're going to bridge it into you need to provide context, and the next 2 points are really context. You need a sentence that mentions the name of the author and the title of the story you're analyzing. That doesn't need to be a sentence unto itself, but it needs to be in there. And then you need a brief summary of the events of the story relevant to your central idea. Okay? You're not writing a long summary. I'm talking 1 or 2 sentences so that someone who maybe hasn't read the story for a long time would have a understanding of the context of the story. Okay, and we'll go through an example in a minute here. Okay, 4 and 5 to me are really the same. I would probably think that eliminating 4 would be fine, so I'm not even going to really talk about it because I think in 5 it's going to be implicit. But for 5, you need your thesis statement. You need a plan for what you're going to cover. You need a thesis. Like what, in this case, it's going to be. And I guess I'm not loving how this is worded. So, you're going to be making a comment on what the moral lesson is, and if he or she, your character, did or did not learn the lesson. Okay, and then the last thing is you're going to have an overview of the 3 sub-assertions, the 3 main ideas that you're going to present in your body paragraph. Okay, so you need to provide your reader with an overview of what you're going to be proving. Okay, so when I write an introduction, I have those elements in mind, and I don't always brainstorm them in the correct order. Okay, so typically I'm going to think of the story and author that I'm going to write about first. So let's go with The Swimmer by John Cheever. You're welcome to still write about The Swimmer, but you have to, you can't copy my introduction. So, okay. So the easiest thing for me, check. I knocked that one off the list. The Swimmer by John Cheever. Next thing I'm going to do is come up with a very short summary of the story. So my example is, in the story, the protagonist, Nettie Merrill, swims across the county only for the reader to discover that his wife and children have left him and his house no longer belongs to him. Okay, you don't need, oh yeah, that's fine actually. Everything looks good there. Okay, so check. I have my summary off the list. Next, I'm going to come up with the main idea related to the essay topic. And then I generate my thesis. Okay, so the main idea is sort of helping me understand what I'm trying to prove. Okay, so look at my example. Nettie Merrill does not learn to face the reality of his life over the course of the journey. Okay, this is my opinion. Remember, with an assertion, you want to pick something that's debatable. So some people might feel like Nettie Merrill did learn his lesson. Some people might feel like he did not learn his lesson. It's not completely clear, but I'm going to use textual evidence, quotes, to prove my perspective. Okay, So and there's a lot of things that you could pick even with the story, a lesson that he should have been learning. I'm going to say that he was learning a lesson of facing reality. There's a lot of other lessons, moral lessons from this story that you could pick. Okay, so now in my mind I have to have kind of a pattern for those 3 body paragraphs to prove my point that he's not learning his lesson. So first I'm going to talk about how Nettie has irresponsible behavior. My first body paragraph is going to focus on that. Okay. The second thing is I'm going to talk about times that his neighbors warn him of his reality. So that's his opportunity to learn a lesson. I'm just going to be proving that people were giving him this opportunity. And then number 3, I'm going to talk about how he's really only faces reality at the end of the story when he's forced to. He doesn't really learn it over the course of his journey, but when he can't get in his house, he at least, maybe I guess you could say, has the reality that he doesn't have a house anymore, perhaps. So those are the overview of my main points, okay? And this is just me brainstorming what I'm going to write here. Okay, now I need to think of a hook. And I'm going to make a sort of general question. The good thing about questions is it's really hard for people to hear a question and not at least try and answer it in their mind. So I'm going to go with, why do people have such a hard time facing reality in life? So that's my hook. So once I have all those pieces put together, I'm going to now put them into the order that they're supposed to be for an introduction. So here's my example. Why do people often choose to live in a dream world far from reality? Okay, so I just took that thing I brainstormed and altered it a little bit. Okay, so there's the hook. Now I'm going to transition into the author's title. The author in the title. John Cheevers, the swimmer, examines this question exactly. Now I'm going to transition into my mini précis, my background, my little summary. In the story, the protagonist, Nettie Merrill, swims across the county only for the reader to discover that his wife and children have left him and belongs to him. Okay, and I'm kind of focusing on the reader discovering this. Okay, surprisingly, so here is my thesis. Surprisingly, Nettie Merrill does not learn to face the reality of his life, so that needs to be corrected, over the course of this journey. Okay, through this journey, he does not come to this realization, is what I'm going to be proving here. Okay, now my last sentence is giving the overview of my 3 body paragraphs. Again, just like you, I'm a work in progress. When I read through things, I might find things that I've done incorrectly, like live there, and hopefully I'll fix that before you see this. But this last part, I like that it's an overview, but I'll talk to you after I read it about what I don't like about it, okay? So this would be my first stab, and I would probably want to revise this last sentence in particular. Nettie needs to understand that his irresponsible behavior has led to his demise. Okay, so that's the first body paragraph is irresponsible behavior. And despite his neighbor's warnings, second body paragraph, he chooses not to face reality until the final lines of the story. Okay, so that's the third body paragraph, that he doesn't learn his lesson throughout the course of the journey. It's in his face at the end when he can't get in his house. Okay, now when you write your introduction, if you have a super solid blueprint or overview of your sub-assertions of your body paragraphs, like my last one, then you don't necessarily need to do this next part. But for your own good with your introduction, if you want to hand this in, it would be really helpful. If you give me just a checklist of the 3 main points of your body paragraphs, then I can make sure that A, it's really clear in your introduction, and B, that you're on track for essay number 1. I won't be as worried. And I am going to turn around and get these introductions back to you quickly. I'll try and even, if you hand them in before the end of this week, I'll try and get them to you back to you, so that, and I would really encourage you to wait to write essay number 1 till you get my feedback. I can always give you an extension if for some reason that interferes with your schedule. But I think it's really important to make sure that we're on the same page. But just back to this little part back here. What I'm not crazy about and what I've written here, and Nettie needs to understand, is I feel like in an analysis I should be proving a point, not moralizing. I can save the moralizing for the conclusion of my story, but for now I'm focusing on just proving a point about the story. So I would almost X out this needs to understand part. I would just say Nettie's irresponsible behavior has led to his demise. And you might see when you read this, I might just edit that with a strike through so you can see that I did in fact change that. Yeah, so if you have any questions, feel free. Oh, remember, sorry that you need to submit this as a Word document to Turnitin.com. And if you have any questions, feel free to send me a private message. I'm definitely here to help. Thanks for listening, and I hope that helped you.